They slapped me right in front of Colonel Rourke. The ceremonial applause died like a knife cutting through silk. I didn't cry. I smiled at the security camera in the corner where evidence had already begun recording. 3 years ago, they drained my disability compensation account and forged my signature on a mortgage. Today, standing before the flag and the anthem, I let the law do the rest. My mother's palm print still burned on my cheek as I straightened my uniform, feeling the weight of the manila folder in my briefcase, every receipt, every forged document, every stolen dollar cataloged and waiting. My name is Avery Dalton, and I've perfected the art of shrinking myself at family gatherings, shoulders drawn in, voice modulated to barely above a whisper, the kind of practiced invisibility that kept my uniform clean through 18 years of their chaos. This Monday morning at the Atlantic Defense Logistics Command should have been routine inventory reports, supply chain adjustments, the methodical rhythm of military precision that had become my sanctuary. The ceremonial meeting room hummed with fluorescent efficiency at 0730 hours. I'd arranged my briefing materials across the polished oak table, each page aligned with military exactness. Colonel Daniel Rourke would arrive in 15 minutes for our quarterly review. Everything was in order until the door burst open. There's our little soldier girl. My mother, Evelyn Pierce, swept in, her perfume attacking the sterile air like a chemical weapon. Behind her, Greg Pierce, my stepfather, filled the doorway with his contractor's bulk, his smile as false as the Rolex on his wrist bought, I knew, with money that wasn't his. Mom, Greg, I kept my voice level, professional. This is a restricted area. How did you— Pastor Briggs knows someone at the gate. Evelyn waved dismissively. We came to congratulate you on your re-enlistment bonus. Family should celebrate together. The re-enlistment bonus I'd received 8 months ago. The one I'd never told them about. Greg moved closer, his breath coffee sour. 25%. That's what family gets. That's what you owe your mother for raising you. I felt my spine straighten involuntarily, muscle memory from basic training. I need you both to leave. Colonel Rourke will be here. You always were ungrateful, Evelyn hissed, her manicured nails clicking against my briefing folder. After everything we've done for you, managing your finances when you couldn't, helping with that house. The house. My stomach clenched. The house I'd bought with my disability compensation after the training accident. The one they'd helped manage while I was deployed. My phone vibrated. A text from Janelle Ortiz, my closest friend and a data forensics specialist. Got it. The POA from 2022. Your signature was digitally copied. Sending encrypted files now. Power of attorney. The document I'd never signed. I don't owe you anything, I said quietly, sliding my phone back into my pocket. You ungrateful. Evelyn's voice pitched higher, but the door opened again. Captain Dalton, Colonel Rourke stopped mid-stride, his gray eyes taking in the scene, my mother's flushed face inches from mine, Greg's aggressive posture, my rigid stance. Colonel, I saluted, grateful for protocol, for structure, for the cameras I knew were recording everything. Are these individuals authorized to be here? Captain. No, sir. They were just leaving. Greg's face darkened. We're her parents. We have every right. On federal property, you have only the rights I grant you. Colonel Rourke's voice carried the weight of 30 years of command. And I'm granting you 3 minutes to exit before security arrives. Evelyn grabbed my wrist, her nails digging in. This isn't over. Avery, you know what we can do, what we can tell people about you. The old threat, the familiar manipulation. I looked at her hand on my wrist, then up at the security camera, its red light steady as a heartbeat. 3 minutes, Colonel Rourke repeated. They left, but not before Greg shoulder-checked me hard enough to scatter my reports. As I knelt to collect them, I saw Colonel Rourke watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Captain Dalton, he said slowly, if you need to file a report. Not yet, sir. I straightened, my briefing materials back in perfect order. But soon. because Janelle's text had confirmed what I'd suspected for months. The forged POA was just the beginning. The real evidence, the HELOC loan they'd taken on my house, the diverted funds, the trail of financial devastation they'd left in my name, all of it was finally coming together in the manila folder I kept locked in my apartment safe. They thought that slap would come later, when we were alone, where no one could see. They had no idea they'd already given me everything I needed. The training accident happened in November 2021, a routine convoy exercise that went sideways when a transport flipped during a storm. 3 fractured ribs, torn ligaments in my shoulder, 8 weeks of rehabilitation. The Army's disability compensation and housing assistance came through within 6 months, $97,000 to start fresh. I was still on medical leave when Evelyn appeared at my apartment, all motherly concern and homemade casserole. "You can't manage all this money alone, sweetheart. Not while you're recovering. Let us help." Greg had spreadsheets. Professional ones, with logos from his contracting business. Investment opportunities, he called them. Safe growth for your future. The pain medication made everything fuzzy. Their words seemed reasonable, then family helping family. I signed papers for a house in a quiet neighborhood near base. Let them handle the closing while I focused on physical therapy. They had keys for emergencies, access to help with maintenance. What could go wrong? Everything, as it turned out. Janelle found the first crack in their scheme 6 months ago when I'd asked her to review my finances. "Avery, there's a HELOC on your house. $45,000 drawn in 3 separate transactions. Home equity line of credit, against the house I'd paid for in cash. That's impossible. The signature's digital, filed electronically through Trent Malloy's mortgage brokerage." Janelle had pulled up the documents on her laptop, her forensic software highlighting anomalies. "The IP address traces to a coffee shop, but the signature, it's too perfect. Like someone copied and pasted from another document." The PowerPoint presentation Greg had me sign for his investment opportunity. I'd been stupid enough to use DocuSign. The money trail led through Pastor Hal Briggs's church 3 separate emergency fundraiser deposits of $15,000 each, all in cash, all within days of the HELOC draws. From there, it vanished into a shell company registered in Delaware Pierce Family Investments, LLC. "Family is everything," Evelyn would say at every holiday dinner, every birthday gathering where I'd shrink into corners while she held court. "Blood takes care of blood. Don't embarrass your mother. Avery." The psychological playbook never changed. When I was 15 and tried to report Greg for taking my babysitting money, "You're being dramatic. Family doesn't involve outsiders." When I was 22 and questioned missing funds from my basic training pay, "We're managing it for you. Don't you trust your mother?" I'd learned to go quiet, to protect myself through silence. The Army gave me structure, distance, a reason to stay away. But they'd found their way in anyway, through forged signatures and stolen trust. The manila folder in my safe grew thicker each week. Bank statements showing deposits I'd never made, withdrawals I'd never authorized, screenshots of text messages where Greg bragged to his drinking buddies about his investment wins, photos from Evelyn's Facebook showing their new cars, vacations to Cabo, kitchen renovations all time-stamped within weeks of the HELOC draws. Janelle had been meticulous. The metadata doesn't lie. Avery. The POA was created on Greg's laptop, same serial number that registered the warranty for their home router. The notary who supposedly witnessed your signature, she was in Florida that week, according to her credit card records. How did you? I have my ways. The point is, this is criminal. Fraud, forgery, identity theft. You could put them away. But I'd hesitated. Years of conditioning, of don't make waves, of family stays quiet, had built walls I was still learning to climb. Then came last week's phone call. Greg, drunk at 2:15 a.m. "Your mom needs another 20 grand. Family emergency. You got that re-enlistment bonus, don't be selfish." What emergency? Don't question your mother. Just transfer the money. Or we might have to tell people about your problems, the medications, the therapy. Wouldn't look good for your security clearance? Would it? The threat was hollow. My command knew about my treatment, had supported me through it. But it showed their desperation, their belief that I was still that scared teenager who'd learned to disappear rather than fight. I'd started recording the calls after that. Virginia's one-party consent law meant I didn't need their permission. Every threat, every manipulation, every drunken admission added to my arsenal. They thought they owned me through fear and stolen money. They were about to learn what happened when you backed a soldier into a corner. The ceremonial introduction was supposed to begin at 0800 hours sharp. Colonel Rourke had returned with 2 other senior officers, the American flag standing proud beside Virginia's state colors. 12 of us were being formally recognized for exceptional service metrics in logistics management. My name would be third on the list. They came back through the main entrance at 0758. This time, Evelyn had reinforcements Pastor Briggs in his collar and practiced smile, playing the role of peacemaker. Greg's face was flushed, whether from anger or the morning's first drinks. I couldn't tell. "Just a quick word with our daughter," Pastor Briggs announced to the room, his voice carrying that false warmth perfected by years of Sunday services. "Family reconciliation before this blessed ceremony." Colonel Rourke's jaw tightened. "This is a military function. Pastor, you'll need to wait. She's an ungrateful bitch who owes us money." Evelyn's composure cracked completely, her voice shrieking across the formal space. "After everything we sacrificed Greg, tell them what she did." The room froze. 15 military personnel, 3 civilian contractors, all watching my family implode in real time. The security camera's red eye never blinked. "You stole our investment opportunity." Greg stepped forward, his contractor boots heavy on the polished floor. "That house was supposed to be collateral for our business expansion. You're destroying your mother's future." "I paid for that house with my disability compensation," I said evenly, each word clear for the recording. "You took out a fraudulent HELOC using a forged power of attorney." "How dare you!" Evelyn lunged forward, and I didn't flinch. "After we raised you, fed you, kept you clothed." "I've been financially independent since I was 18. I interrupted. "You've taken over $60,000 from me through fraud." The slap came without warning. Not from Evelyn, from Greg. His contractor's palm, rough with calluses, cracked across my left cheek hard enough to snap my head sideways. The sound echoed off the ceremonial room's walls like a gunshot. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. My cheek burned, and I could taste copper where my teeth had cut the inside of my mouth. But I didn't raise my hand to touch it. Instead, I straightened slowly, turned my face fully toward the security camera, ensuring it captured the red mark blooming across my skin. "Sergeant Bell," Colonel Rourke's voice could have frozen hydrogen, "escort these individuals off federal property immediately." So, Mason Bell, 6'3" of military police training, materialized from the doorway. "Sir, ma'am, Pastor, you need to come with me." "She's lying," Evelyn screeched, but Mason was already moving, his body language making clear this wasn't a negotiation. "Assault and battery," Mason muttered as he guided Greg past me, his voice low but intentional. "On federal property. That's a mandatory report. Captain Dalton. Camera caught everything." Greg tried to wrench away. "She's my daughter. I have every right to discipline. She's a commissioned officer in the United States Army." Colonel Rourke stepped between us, his presence a wall of authority. "And you just assaulted her in front of 16 witnesses and a security system." Pastor Briggs attempted damage control, his hands raised in false peace. "Surely we can handle this as a family matter." "Pastor," I said, my voice steady despite the throbbing in my cheek. "There's $45,000 of family matter that went through your church's emergency fund. All cash. All within days of fraudulent withdrawals from my account." His practiced smile finally cracked, as Mason escorted them out. Evelyn's final words carried back. "You'll regret this, Avery. We know things about you. We'll ruin you." The ceremonial room remained silent for 30 seconds after they left. Then Colonel Rourke turned to me, his expression unreadable. "Captain Dalton, do you need medical attention?" "No, sir." "Do you intend to press charges?" I thought about the manila folder in my safe, about Janelle's forensic evidence, about 3 years of theft and a lifetime of manipulation. "Yes, sir. Full charges, criminal and civil." He nodded once. "Sergeant Bell will have the incident report ready within the hour." "The security footage is automatically archived." He paused, studying the mark on my face. "The ceremony can be postponed if you need—" "No, sir." I straightened my uniform, squared my shoulders. "They don't get to take this from me, too." The introduction ceremony proceeded. When my name was called, I stood at attention while Colonel Rourke read my service record. The red mark on my cheek had darkened to purple, visible to everyone. Nobody pretended not to see it. Everyone pretended it didn't matter. But I caught Colonel Rourke's eye as he handed me my commendation certificate, and his slight nod told me everything. The uniform protects its own. The real war was just beginning. The bruise photographed beautifully under the evidence lights at the base medical facility, purple spreading to yellow at the edges, Greg's palm print visible in the swelling. The medic, a young specialist named Rivera, documented everything with clinical precision while Sergeant Bell took my formal statement. "Captain Dalton, I'll need copies of any supporting documentation for the financial crimes you mentioned," Bell said, his tablet recording every word. "The assault is clear-cut, but if there's a pattern of harassment, I'll have everything delivered by 1600 hours." I promised. Back in my apartment, I spread the evidence across my dining table like battle plans. Janelle arrived at 1300 hours with her laptop and a flash drive labeled "Pierce Financial Fraud" in her neat handwriting. "I've been digging deeper," she said, pulling up spreadsheets on her screen. "The digital signature on the POA. It's not just copied, it's traced from a PDF you signed for your last lease renewal. The metadata shows Greg's laptop created it at 11:47 p.m. on March 15th, 2022. How specific can you be about the location? The IP address hits Murphy's Tavern on Route 17. Greg's credit card shows he had a tab open that night. 3 whiskeys and a burger. Closed out at 12:23 a.m. I photographed each document, creating a digital backup. The HELOC papers showed 3 withdrawals April 3rd, April 28th, and May 15th, each for $15,000. Here's where it gets interesting. Janelle pulled up another screen. I found the church's old treasurer, Mrs. Helena Rodriguez. She quit last year after raising concerns about Pastor Briggs's emergency fund handling. The phone number Janelle provided connected me to a woman with sharp memories and no love for Pastor Briggs. Those cash deposits, Mrs. Rodriguez's voice crackled through my speaker. $15,000 each, always just under the federal reporting limit. Briggs said they were for a family in crisis. But the money went right back out, same day, as a construction donation to Pierce Family Investments, LLC. Would you be willing to provide a sworn statement? Honey, I've been waiting for someone to ask. I kept copies of everything before I quit. By 1500 hours, I had a 3-inch binder of evidence, bank statements highlighted with fluorescent yellow, the forged POA with Janelle's technical analysis attached, screenshots of Greg's social media showing off purchases that coincided with each theft, Evelyn's text messages demanding money, saved from my phone's backup cloud. I arrived at the ADLC legal office at 15:45. Colonel Rourke was already there with Major Sarah Whitfield from JAG. "Captain Dalton." Major Whitfield's handshake was firm. "The colonel's briefed me on this morning's incident. Sergeant Bell's report is thorough, but I understand there's more." I placed the binder on her desk. 3 years of fraud, forgery, and identity theft, ma'am. Over $60,000 stolen through fraudulent means. She opened the binder, her expression hardening as she flipped through pages. "This is extensive. The forensic analysis on the digital signature alone would hold up in court." "There's more," I said, pulling out my phone. "Virginia is a one-party consent state. I've been recording their threats and admissions for the past 3 weeks. Greg's voice filled the office. That house equity is ours by right. You think the Army will take your side when they hear about your mental health issues. Then, Evelyn, we know about the medications. Avery, the Ambien, the anxiety diagnosis. One word from us and your security clearance is gone. Major Whitfield looked up sharply. They're attempting extortion based on your legitimate medical treatment. Treatment the Army provided and documented. Ma'am, my command has been fully informed throughout my recovery. Colonel Rourke leaned forward. What do you need from us, Captain? Permission to pursue full criminal and civil charges, sir, and I'll need to attend court proceedings, which may require duty adjustments. Granted. Major Whitfield will coordinate with the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office. He paused. This took courage, Captain. Ada Kira Lowell from the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office called within 2 hours. Her voice was steel wrapped in Southern courtesy. Captain Dalton, I've reviewed the preliminary evidence. We're looking at felony fraud, forgery, and identity theft charges for Greg Pierce. Evelyn Pierce would face conspiracy charges and misdemeanor assault as an accomplice. The assault charge for Greg could be enhanced due to the federal property aspect. What about Pastor Briggs and Trent Malloy? If Mrs. Rodriguez's statement holds and we can trace the money through the church, Briggs faces money laundering charges. Malloy's looking at conspiracy to commit fraud for facilitating the false HELOC. The investigation machine was spinning up, gears clicking into place with military precision. Every document I'd collected, every recording I'd made, every night I'd spent building this case while they thought I was still their victim, it all led to this moment. One more thing, Ada Lowell added. They'll likely try to contact you, document everything, but don't engage alone. We can arrange a controlled meeting if needed. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. Evelyn. We need to talk. Pastor Briggs's office. Tomorrow at 2. Come alone or we go public with everything. I forwarded the message to Ada Lowell. Her response was immediate. Perfect. We'll make sure you're not alone. The war room convened at Ada Lowell's office at 0900 hours Tuesday morning. She'd assembled a strike team, Detective Patricia Morse from Financial Crimes, Major Whitfield from JAG, and a court reporter named James who looked like he could transcribe in his sleep. We're going to hit them with what I call the double scissor approach, Lowell explained, her manicured nails tapping on 2 separate case files. Blade 1 criminal charges, Blade 2 civil recovery with asset freezing. They won't be able to dodge both. Detective Morse spread out the timeline Janelle had created. The criminal side is solid. We have the fraudulent POA creation traced to Greg's laptop, the HELOC applications with forged signatures, and the money trail through the church. That's felony fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Greg's looking at 5 to 10 years if convicted on all counts. The assault enhances everything, Major Whitfield added. It shows a pattern of intimidation. Federal property violation means we can push for maximum sentences. Lowell opened the second file. The civil action is where we destroy them financially. Emergency protective order first keeps them away from you and the base. Then we file for immediate asset freeze on the HELOC funds and any accounts tied to Pierce Family Investments, LLC. Can we recover the stolen money? I asked. We'll trace every penny. The house they renovated, the cars they bought, all purchased with stolen funds. We can put liens on everything. Force sales if necessary. Lowell's smile was sharp. I've already prepared the motion. Judge Harrison loves fraud cases where the evidence is this clean. Detective Morse pulled out a device the size of a car key fob. For tomorrow's meeting, state-issued recorder, admissible in court. We'll have Sergeant Bell stationed outside, patrol units in the parking lot. You'll be completely safe. I want them to talk, I said. They always get sloppy when they think they're winning. That's the plan. Lowell handed me a script. Don't follow this exactly that looks staged, but hit these talking points. Get them to admit to the POA, the HELOC, the threats. Let them think you're considering dropping charges in exchange for a payoff. The protective order paperwork was filed within hours. Judge Harrison, a former Marine, granted the temporary order immediately after reviewing the security footage of the assault. Striking a military officer on federal property, He muttered while signing. What kind of fool, never mind. Granted. Full hearing in 10 days. Janelle worked her magic on the financial evidence, creating a visualization that showed money flowing from my accounts through the fraudulent HELOC, into the church, and out to Pierce Family Investments. Each transaction was time-stamped and cross-referenced with Greg and Evelyn's purchases. Look at this. She highlighted a section. 3 days after each HELOC draw, they made major purchases. The kitchen renovation, $14,000. The Cabo trip, $8,000. Greg's new truck down payment, $11,000. They weren't even trying to hide it, Detective Morse observed. Why would they? I replied. They thought I'd never fight back. The asset freeze motion was a masterpiece of legal precision. Lowell included Janelle's forensic analysis, Mrs. Rodriguez's affidavit about the church funds, and screenshots of Greg bragging on Facebook about his investment successes. We're asking for a freeze on all accounts associated with Pierce Family Investments, the church's emergency fund, and their personal accounts, Lowell explained. Also requesting an emergency audit of the church's finances going back 3 years. Pastor Briggs wouldn't just lose his reputation, he'd lose his church. By Tuesday evening, everything was in motion. The criminal complaints were drafted, waiting only for tomorrow's recorded confessions to add the final nails. The civil suit was ready to file the moment we had them on tape admitting to the fraud. My phone had been blowing up all day. 17 calls from Evelyn, 12 from Greg, 23 text messages ranging from threats to pleas to more threats. You're destroying your family. We'll tell everyone about your breakdown. No one will believe you over us. Please, baby, we're your parents. You'll regret this for the rest of your life. I forwarded each one to Detective Morse. Building the harassment case. Colonel Rourke called at 2100 hours. Captain, I want you to know the entire command structure stands behind you. If you need anything, time off, security, legal support, it's yours. Thank you, sir. After tomorrow, it should be in the justice system's hands. Dalton, his voice softened slightly. What they did to you, the financial abuse, the assault that takes tremendous courage to confront. The Army's proud of you. I sat in my apartment that night, the recorder on my coffee table, the script in my hands. Tomorrow, I'd walk into Pastor Briggs's office and let my parents incriminate themselves. The girl who'd learned to shrink, to go silent, to disappear, she was gone. In her place stood a soldier who'd learned that sometimes the best defense was a devastating legal offense. The double scissors were sharpened and ready to cut. Pastor Briggs's office smelled like leather and Lie's expensive furniture bought with other people's money, walls lined with certificates of righteousness that meant nothing. I arrived at 1400 hours sharp, the recorder tucked in my inside pocket, its red light hidden but running. Sergeant Bell sat in an unmarked car across the street. 2 patrol units idled at the strip mall's far end. ADA Lowell was on speed dial. They'd arranged themselves like a tribunal. Pastor Briggs behind his massive desk, Evelyn in the wingback chair like a queen holding court, Greg standing by the window trying to look intimidating. The power play was obvious, make me feel outnumbered, overwhelmed, outmaneuvered. Avery, Pastor Briggs began, his voice dripping paternal disappointment. This has all gotten out of hand. Surely we can resolve this as Christians, as family. Family doesn't forge signatures, I said, sitting down uninvited. Family doesn't steal $60,000. Steal, Evelyn's voice pitched high. We managed your money when you couldn't. That signature, you were on so much medication you don't even remember signing it. Perfect. She'd just admitted to taking advantage of someone she claimed was incapacitated. I never signed a power of attorney, I said clearly. I have the forensic analysis proving the signature was digitally copied from another document. Greg moved from the window, his bulk meant to intimidate. You can't prove anything. That computer stuff is all theoretical. The metadata shows your laptop created the document. I pulled out Janelle's report, laying it on Pastor Briggs's desk. At Murphy's Tavern, 11:47 p.m., March 15th. You had 3 whiskeys that night. Closed your tab at 12:23 a. His face went pale. How did you? The same way I traced the HELOC funds through Pastor Briggs's emergency fund. I turned to the pastor. $15,000, 3 times. Cash deposits just under federal reporting limits. Then immediate transfers to Pierce Family Investments, LLC. Pastor Briggs's hands fidgeted with his collar. The church's charitable giving is protected under... Money laundering isn't protected under anything, I interrupted. Mrs. Rodriguez kept excellent records before you pushed her out. That bitter old woman! Evelyn spat. No one will believe. She has receipts, deposit slips, transfer authorizations with your signature. Pastor. I let that sink in. The FBI takes church financial fraud very seriously. The room's temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. What do you want? Greg's aggression cracked, desperation seeping through. I want my money back, every penny, plus damages. We don't have $60,000 just lying around, Evelyn shrieked. Then sell the truck, cancel the kitchen renovation, return whatever you haven't spent. I stood, gathering my papers. Or explain to a jury why you thought stealing from a disabled veteran was acceptable. You little bitch. Greg stepped toward me, fists clenched. You're destroying your mother. After everything Everything you what? I pulled out my phone, playing his voicemail from last week. His drunk voice filled the office. Your mom needs another 20 grand. You got that re-enlistment bonus, don't be selfish. Or we might have to tell people about your problems, the medications, the therapy. That's extortion, I said quietly, on top of fraud, forgery, identity theft, and assault. Pastor Briggs stood abruptly. I think we should all calm down. Sit down, Hal, Evelyn snarled. This is family business. Family business that went through your church, I reminded him, making you an accessory. The pastor sat back down, sweat beading on his forehead. Here's what's happening, I said, moving toward the door. Criminal charges are already filed. The protective order is in place. Your accounts will be frozen by tomorrow morning. You can't do this! Evelyn lunged from her chair, grabbing my arm. I'm your mother. My mother wouldn't have stolen from me. I shook her off. My mother wouldn't have forged my signature. My mother wouldn't have hit me in front of my commanding officer. That was Greg, she protested. And you watched. And you laughed. I opened the door, pausing at the threshold. Oh, and that digital signature you mentioned. The one from my house Greg just admitted on recording that he accessed my computer without authorization. That's another felony. Greg's face went from pale to purple. You recorded us, you little one-party consent state, I said. Completely legal, unlike everything you've done. Wait, Pastor Briggs called out, desperation cracking his composed facade. Surely we can work out a deal. The church could make restitution. With what money? Pastor, the emergency fund you've been laundering, or the building fund you've been skimming? I didn't actually know about a building fund, but his expression told me I'd hit another target. Avery, please. Evelyn's voice broke, finally realizing the walls were closing in. We're family. We love you. You love my money, I corrected. You love my silence. You loved that I was too traumatized to fight back. We made you who you are. Greg shouted. No, I said firmly. The Army made me who I am. You just made me realize who I'm not. I'm not your victim anymore. I walked out, leaving them in their panic. In the parking lot, Sergeant Bell stepped out of his car, giving me a subtle thumbs up. The recorder in my pocket had captured everything, every admission, every threat, every beautiful moment of self-incrimination. My phone buzzed. Ada Lowell. Judge Harrison signed the asset freeze order, effective immediately. By the time they realized their bank cards wouldn't work, it would be too late. The Hampton County Circuit courtroom smelled of old wood and justice delayed, but not today. At 900 hours on a Thursday morning, 3 weeks after the confrontation in Pastor Briggs's office, the preliminary hearing convened. The gallery was fuller than expected. Colonel Rourke in his dress blues, 6 members of my unit, Janelle with her laptop, and a reporter from the Virginian pilot who'd gotten wind of the military angle. Greg and Evelyn sat at the defense table looking smaller than I'd ever seen them. Their lawyer, a public defender named Morrison who looked overwhelmed by the evidence mountain, shuffled papers nervously. Pastor Briggs sat in the gallery, his own lawyer keeping careful distance from my parents' case. Ada Lowell rose with the precision of a battlefield commander. Your Honor, the Commonwealth presents evidence of systematic financial fraud perpetrated against Captain Avery Dalton, United States Army, by her mother and stepfather. The security footage played first. The slap echoed through the courtroom speakers, Greg's hand connecting with my face in high definition. Several people in the gallery gasped. Colonel Rourke's jaw tightened. "That's assault and battery on federal property," Lowell stated, "but it's just the tip of the iceberg." She introduced the forged power of attorney next. Janelle took the stand, her testimony clinical and devastating. The digital signature was extracted from a PDF signed by Captain Dalton in January 2022. Janelle explained, pointing to her analysis on the courtroom screen. The metadata conclusively shows it was created on Greg Pierce's laptop at 11:47 p.m. on March 15th, while he was at Murphy's Tavern. Objection. Morrison tried weakly. The witness can't prove Mr. Pierce was operating the laptop. Sustained as to the operator, Judge Harrison ruled, but the evidence of forgery stands. The money trail came next. Lowell displayed the flowchart my account to the fraudulent HELOC, to cash withdrawals, to the church, to Pierce Family Investments, LLC. $15,000, 3 times, Lowell emphasized. Each just under federal reporting requirements. Classic structuring to avoid detection. Mrs. Rodriguez testified via video link from Florida, her evidence precise. Pastor Briggs instructed me to record them as emergency charitable donations, but the money went right back out to the Pierce's company. I have the receipts. Then came my turn. I stood, straightened my uniform, and walked to the witness stand. The oath felt heavier than any I'd taken in the military. Captain Dalton, Lowell began, tell us about your relationship with the defendants. They're my mother and stepfather, I said clearly. For 18 years, they controlled me through emotional manipulation and financial abuse. When I joined the Army, I thought I'd escaped. But after my training accident, they found new ways to steal from me. Objection. Morrison stood. Prejudicial characterization. Overruled. Judge Harrison cut him off. Continue, Captain. Why, I detailed the theft, the forged documents, the threats. When Lowell played the recording from Pastor Briggs's office, Greg's own voice damned him. That computer stuff is all theoretical. We don't have 60,000 just lying around. Your witness, Lowell said to Morrison. The public defender approached carefully. Captain Dalton, isn't it true you were on heavy medication after your accident? Yes. Prescribed and monitored by Army medical staff? Could you have signed documents and forgotten? No. The forensic evidence proves the signature was digitally copied. Additionally, I was in physical therapy at Fort Belvoir at the exact time the POA was supposedly notarized. Morrison retreated. No further questions. Evelyn couldn't help herself. She stood suddenly, shouting, "She's lying. We're her parents. We have rights." Mrs. Pierce, Judge Harrison's gavel cracked like thunder. You'll remain silent or be removed. Colonel Rourke was called as a character witness. His testimony was brief but powerful. Captain Dalton is one of the finest officers under my command. He stated, the assault I witnessed was unprovoked and violent. It occurred during an official military ceremony, dishonoring not just Captain Dalton, but the uniform itself. The prosecutor rested. Morrison made a fumbling attempt at defense, suggesting family miscommunication and misunderstanding of financial arrangements. Judge Harrison wasn't buying it. I've seen enough, he announced. Greg Pierce, you're bound over for trial on charges of felony fraud, forgery, identity theft, and assault. Bail is set at $100,000. Evelyn Pierce, you're bound over on conspiracy charges and as an accessory. Bail at $50,000. Your Honor. Lowell stood again. The protective order. Extended indefinitely. The defendants are prohibited from contacting Captain Dalton or entering federal property. He looked directly at my parents. Any violation will result in immediate incarceration. As the bailiff approached with handcuffs, something remarkable happened. Colonel Rourke stood and saluted me. Then the 6 members of my unit stood and did the same, a formal military honor, recognizing courage under fire. The salute I returned was the steadiest my hand had ever been. Greg's wrists were cuffed behind his back, the metal clicking with finality. Evelyn sobbed as her bail was processed, mascara streaming down her cheeks. Pastor Briggs fled before anyone could serve him with the separate summons waiting in Lowell's briefcase. "Captain Dalton," Judge Harrison called out as the courtroom began to clear. "This court recognizes the courage it took to stand up to family abuse. The law will ensure justice is served." Outside, reporters waited with cameras and questions, but I walked past them all, standing for a moment on the courthouse steps. The October air was sharp and clean, like the first breath after surfacing from deep water. My phone buzzed a text from the bank. The HELOC had been reversed, the fraudulent debt removed from my name. The first victory in what would be a longer war, but victory nonetheless. Behind me, I heard the sheriff's transport van doors slam shut, taking Greg to county lockup until he could make bail if he could make bail with frozen assets. The final verdicts came down 6 weeks later on a gray December morning. Greg got 7 years federal time for fraud and forgery, plus 18 months for assault on federal property sentences to run concurrently. The courtroom photographer captured the exact moment the guilty verdict was read, his face collapsing like a demolished building, all that false bravado finally crushed under the weight of consequences. Evelyn received 3 years probation and 6 months house arrest for conspiracy. She'd flipped on Greg in exchange for the lighter sentence, claiming she was manipulated, coerced, another victim. The prosecution had recordings suggesting otherwise, but her cooperation in revealing 2 more forged documents, a car loan application and a credit card I'd never known about, bought her freedom from prison walls, if not from the electronic ankle monitor she'd wear. Pastor Briggs's church was shuttered by federal investigators. $43,000 in laundered funds traced through his emergency relief account earned him 5 years federal time and permanent loss of his nonprofit status. Trent Malloy, the mortgage broker, got 2 years and lost his license. The dominoes fell exactly as Ada Lowell had predicted. The civil case settled faster than expected. Their assets liquidated the truck, the renovated kitchen stripped and sold, Evelyn's jewelry, Greg's tools. Combined with the insurance investigation that recovered most of the fraudulent HELOC funds, I recouped $48,000 of the $60,000 stolen. The rest would come from Greg's prison work wages, garnished for the next 7 years. The sheriff's department led Greg out in handcuffs and leg shackles after sentencing, right past the Associated Press photographer. The image made the military papers a contractor in chains being led past a uniformed officer standing at attention. They never printed my name. Just, "Local veteran wins justice against family fraud." Evelyn tried to approach me outside the courthouse one last time, her ankle monitor visible beneath her dress pants. "Avery, baby, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I looked at the woman who'd raised me, trained me to shrink, to disappear, to accept abuse as love. "I know you're sorry. Sorry you got caught." "How can you be so cold? I'm your mother." "No," I said firmly. "You're someone who gave birth to me." Mothers protect their children. They don't rob them. The protective order meant she couldn't follow as I walked to my car. In the rearview mirror, I saw her standing on those courthouse steps, growing smaller with distance until she was just another stranger in a gray morning crowd. Back at ADLC, my unit had decorated my desk with a small American flag and a card signed by everyone from Colonel Rourke down to the newest private, "For exceptional courage in the face of domestic enemies," Rourke had written. The manila folder that had started everything now sat empty in my apartment, its contents transformed into justice. I kept one document, the forged power of attorney with Janelle's analysis attached. a reminder that sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought overseas, but in courtrooms and family homes. 3 months later, I got promoted to major. Colonel Rourke pinned the oak leaves himself, mentioning in his speech that leadership wasn't just about tactical decisions, but moral courage. Greg would hear about it eventually, probably from whatever newsletter reaches federal prison. Evelyn would find out through Facebook, watching from outside the fence of her house arrest as my life moved forward without them. The money recovered went into a trust I couldn't touch without 2 signatures, mine and my JAG advisors. Not because I didn't trust myself, but because I'd learned that predators smell vulnerability, and I refused to be prey again. Sergeant Bell found me in the commissary last week, wanting to know if I regretted it, if some part of me wished I'd just let it go, kept the family peace, accepted the theft as the price of having parents. Every criminal thinks their victim won't fight back, I told him, stirring my coffee. My parents thought military discipline meant I'd always follow orders, always respect authority, always stay quiet. They forgot the most important part of our training. What's that? Major. We're taught to identify enemies, foreign and domestic, and sometimes the domestic ones share your blood. The last time I checked, Greg was in federal lockup in Petersburg, sewing military uniforms' ironic punishment for a man who'd assaulted an officer. Evelyn posts vague messages on Facebook about family forgiveness and false accusations, careful not to violate the protective order by naming me directly. Pastor Briggs's congregation scattered. The church building now a CrossFit gym. Trent Malloy works at a used car lot, his financial career destroyed by a single Google search of his name. Justice doesn't always come wrapped in satisfaction. Sometimes it arrives quiet as a bank statement showing recovered funds, sharp as a gavel's final strike, cold as handcuffs clicking shut. But it comes. When you stop shrinking, stop hiding, stop letting family be an excuse for abuse. I stand taller now in my uniform, knowing that the hardest battle I ever fought wasn't in a convoy or a combat zone. It was in a courtroom, staring down the people who were supposed to love me most and choosing law over blood. The security camera that recorded that slap is still there in the ceremonial room, its red light steady as ever. But now when I see it, I don't see surveillance. I see salvation. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts below. Your support means everything.